Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. Today's show, 8 wide receivers that the Raiders could sign in free agency. Before you yell at me for my number 1 receiver on the list, just hear me out. So I already made a video on 6 linebackers that the Raiders could target. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out on the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Raiders Report. So now let's get into the second biggest need, wide receiver. And why is wide receiver the second biggest need? We need to figure out what we got with Derek Carr. But, I mean, look at the Raiders' depth chart. We already knew that it was thin. We were hoping we had a number 1 wide receiver, and everyone throw it in the comments, FAB. Tyrell Williams, his first 5 games played well, battled some injuries. Zay Jones, I don't really think ever lived up to what we were hoping for after the trade. Hunter Renfrow got banged up in the season, but still showed some flashes. He also showed some signs of being a rookie. But then you got Dwayne Harris, who battled injuries, 2020 free agent. Keelan Doss, free agent. Marcel Aitman, you're looking at a lot of wide receivers that don't have a lot of playing experience. And when I look at the free agent market, there are a lot of veterans out there. So make sure that you guys are staying tuned and watching us the entire offseason. Now, I got a player coming on the show on Tuesday, so you don't miss out. Click that subscribe button. It's the big red button. If you're colorblind, you might like it more because it's silver and black. Click it. And if you want to know who the player is, I'm going to put it on my Instagram. It's at Mitchell Renz 365. But remember, our shows, live Q&As, you're going to be able to ask them almost anything you want. Almost anything. Keep it clean, please. All right, let's get in now to my top 8. I'm going to go 8-1. Y'all want a bigger wide receiver for Derek Carr to be able to target in the red zone. Here's a player, Dontrelle Inman. Now, he played in only 7 games last year. Chargers, Colts, kind of bounced around. He was on the IR list as well. When I think about what Inman could bring, he's just going to be a reliable veteran at age 30. And at 6'3", 205 pounds, the year that I want you to look at with Inman is back in 2018 when he played with the Colts. Now, sure, he had Andrew Luck, but he literally became one of the most reliable wide receivers for that Colts offense, especially in the playoffs. When you're 6'3", when you're 205 pounds, you can go up and get the football. We already have receivers like Hunter Renfrow. If we're going to hold on to Zay Jones as well. We have guys that can play in the slot. Maybe we need a bigger body like Inman. Let's go to number 7 on my list now, Tajae Sharpe, who is just, to put it simply, buried on the Titans depth chart. And I think Ryan Tannehill's done a great job. Obviously, they run the ball effectively with King Henry, but his numbers have declined since his rookie year. But I'll say that's more to do with the decline of Marcus Mariota and more decline that they're just putting a lot more options around Tajae Sharpe. But if there is a point I do want to make, back in 2016, Mike Mayock really liked what Tajae Sharpe brought to the table. He said he was a solid route runner, especially when you watched him on tape. If there's one thing that I've learned from covering the Raiders, is if Mike Mayock likes somebody in the draft, if John Gruden likes somebody in the past, they're going to be interested in him. Now, I think the Titans end up bringing back Sharpe, but if he does ultimately hit that free agent market, and he is out there and he's available, don't be shocked if Sharpe is a player that the Raiders go out and get, because I think you can get him for pretty cheap. Number 6 on my list, a former first-round draft pick, Laquon Treadwell. He was number 1 wide receiver on Mike Mayock's 2016 draft list. Mayock also said he's one of the best blocking wide receivers in 2016. Now, between you and me, maybe he just needs a change of scenery. He got stuck behind Stephon Diggs. He got stuck behind Adam Thielen. Now, Treadwell had his chances. He did. He didn't live up to them. But he is still only 24 years old. He is 6'2", 215 pounds. And if the Raiders want to be physical, you can go out and get this receiver at a major discount. You can be physical with Laquon Treadwell. Our offense is built around that offensive line. We signed Richie Incognito 2 years. That means we want to be physical. Josh Jacobs, Offensive Rookie of the Year. If you disagree with me, don't watch my show. But when you see what Laquon Treadwell can do just for the running game aspect and maybe living up to his first-round hype, hey, man, I'm totally on board. Let's go out and target Laquon Treadwell. So today's show is all around wide receivers that the Raiders could target in 2020 free agency. If you're watching this on YouTube, you might get hit with an ad break. While that ad is playing, I want you to scroll on down, and I want you to comment, okay? I want you to name a free agent wide receivers the Raiders should sign in 2020. Top 5. Listen to Drake this weekend, I'll be honest with you. So number 5 on my list, it's Randall Cobb. If the Raiders want to go out and get a veteran wide receiver who is a solid route runner, which right now the way that the Raiders offense works, go out and get Derek solid route runners who can run the underneath routes. That's how you're going to move the football. I think he'd be a good fit with Carr, But the other aspect of Cobb's game, I think he's battled some injuries. He had over 823 yards this past year, 3 touchdowns. I actually think he's been a pretty solid wide receiver in the red zone his entire career. But this past year, 15.1 yards per catch. Now, I will say that it has probably a little bit more to do with the Cowboys offense, stretching the field. I mean, Dak had a career high in passing yards. But Randall Cobb, if you're looking for another wide receiver veteran, and maybe Cowboys can't keep the other wide receiver you're about to see on the list here, all I'm saying is keep an open mind for Randall Cobb. And also keep an open mind for BetDSI. If you want to bet on the Super Bowl, go to chatsports.com/bet. Let me know in the comments section who you got. And if you're going to go to BetDSI, use that promo code Raiders120. It gets you a 120% deposit bonus. Chatsports.com/bet. The number 4 wide receiver on my list, Robby Anderson. He makes me nervous, man. Like, I know the Raiders want a field stretcher. I know that's what they looked for all last year in free agency. But there is a part of me that is worried about Robby Anderson and some of his off-the-field antics being in Las Vegas. I mean, let's be real, right? Heck, I would even be nervous about me being in Las Vegas. Now, he did look very impressive against the Raiders back in Week 12. 4 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. He's got speed. He does have talent. I think when you look at his numbers, they kind of get pushed down a little bit because it's the Jets, because it's Adam Gase. You're dealing also with a young quarterback in Sam Darnold. Robby Anderson is talented. But when I think about the money that Robby Anderson could potentially get, I don't know if I'm confident paying Robby Anderson 12, 13, heck, maybe even $14 million on a wide receiver who I'm not confident in being in Las Vegas. Number 3 on my list, it is A.J. Green of wide receiver targets. Let's be real. If you tell me right now A.J. Green is healthy, he would be number 1 on my list. Period. But he's missed 29 games the last 4 years. Okay? 29 games. I need a reliable wide receiver this season because I need to be able to see what Derek has. I need to be able to see where this franchise is going to go in the future. Now, A.J. Green, I think when fully healthy, is actually one of the best wide receivers in the league. One of the reasons why I respect A.J. Green as much as I do, he's quiet. You don't see him talking, being an idiot, slapping people on the butt like OBJ. You don't see him being a clown on social media, FAB again. A.J. Green is a silent assassin, and he would look great in silver and black. But the injuries are starting to just scare the hell out of me with Green. But AJ, if you want to come under the Raiders and you can guarantee me that you're going to be healthy, for 12 games, I'd honestly probably put you number 1 on my list. So the last 2 wide receivers that I talked about, Robby Anderson, A.J. Green. I want you to let me know which one you would rather have, okay? If you're going to go with Robby Anderson, type RA. If you're going to go with A.J. Green, I want you to type AJ. Now, I'll put a comment in the video underneath as well on who I would go with. If you could, guys, comment on who you would want to go with. I want RA for Robby Anderson or AJ for AJ Green. My number 2 wide receiver on the list is a player that I've talked about a lot. Yes, I understand he's played for the Broncos and 49ers, and it kind of hurts my eyes putting those logos on screen. But I actually think that Emmanuel Sanders is the perfect wide receiver for Derek Carr. He is the perfect wide receiver for a John Gruden offense. And if you're trying to mold some of these young wide receivers in the draft, right? The more and more I made this list, the more and more I thought I actually would be okay with the Raiders getting Emmanuel Sanders for a 1 or 2 year deal and then going out and getting some of these talented young players in the draft, like a CeeDee Lamb, like a Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, T. Higgins, Laviska Shenault. Like, if you could get a veteran receiver like Emmanuel Sanders, who is just an absolute magician at his craft, mold some of those young players in the way that you want them, that's what I would love for Emmanuel Sanders. Now, even though he is number 2 on my list, out of all the receivers on this list, he's the player that I would want the absolute most. I also want to give a special shout out to today's other sponsor, BMW of Santa Maria. If you guys are in the market for a car, you can call or text them. It's 805-878-6160. Ask for my guys, Matt and Rudy. They'll hook you up with some deals. They hooked me up. They're just trying to hook up the nation. But if you're in the market for a car, you see the BMW sales event, bmwsm.com. Call or text them, 805-878-6160. Ask for Matt and Rudy. Number 1 on my list, don't yell at me. He is the most talented wide receiver on the free agent market. Now, I personally believe that the Cowboys, they're going to bring him back. And I made the last point very clear. Just because he is number 1 on my list, that doesn't mean that I want him on the Raiders. when you look at Amari's first 2 years, he was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And then I don't think he became happy. And then he started taking plays off. But if you want to talk about just talent, and just talent alone, Amari Cooper is the most talented wide receiver on the free agent market. Now, I personally don't want him back on the Raiders because I don't think he was happy with the Raiders. And he was definitely taking plays off. He had his drop rate was 8.4%, which is extremely high. Amari Cooper, though, is another quiet receiver. I do still like Amari as a person, but personally, I don't want him back on the Raiders. Now, I want you to pick a wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders or Amari Cooper, okay? Now, just because you're watching this on YouTube doesn't mean you can't give it a thumbs up or a heart. So how about this? If you're going to go with Emmanuel Sanders over Amari Cooper, I want you to like the video, okay? I want you to like the video. If you see this on Facebook, either you click the like for Emmanuel or you're going to heart it for Amari Cooper. If you had to pick one of those wide receivers, let me know. Now, what'd you guys think of my list, okay? I'm always curious what you guys have to say, and I want you to send me a DM on Instagram at Mitchell Renz 365. I appreciate the people that watch the videos all the way to the end, so I want you to give me a grade, okay? A, B, C, D, or F. DM it to me at Mitchell Renz 365, and if there's a player that I missed, educate me. Hit me up. Raider Nation, what's going on? Is this the #1 Raiders channel on YouTube? For Chucky Heads, believe it, baby. And if you haven't already, subscribe right here. I'm giving you Chucky Heads, news, rumors, Raider Nation rumors. And look at this, I'm making your life easier. Check out my next video. Thanks for watching, and go Raiders.